Welcome to the Anson's Law podcast. I'm joined today for the second appearance of Jonathan Dudley, who is an accountant from Crow and also is the head of manufacturing for Crow. And I think we're going to start on that very topic, really. In terms of manufacturing, there's been no getting away from the news and what we've experienced recently in the West Midlands, because it's such a large part of the local economy, is the impact on the shutdown at Jaguar Land Rover.
Yeah, but it hasn't just affected the Midlands. It's also affected Merseyside. And in as much as a lot of our supply chain also serve other automotive manufacturers, it's sort of had ripples right the way down the M40 corridor down to the Thames Valley.
So it's a national impact, really.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure where I was. I did realise that they'd shut down as much as anything because there's one of our rugby players from our local team who is normally working on shift at Jaguar Land Rover, all of a sudden started training for the first time in many years.
We've had some time.
But I'm not sure. Sometimes some of that gets lost. And so what happened here? Why did Jaguar Land Rover shut their production line?
Right. So they had a cyber attack from somewhere. We can only speculate where. And I don't know whether you've been around a modern car plant, but I've had the privilege of being around both Jaguar and Land Rover's plants in Birmingham. And if you can imagine a Range Rover and the body of a Range Rover, you've got the body of a Range Rover before it's connected to the chassis or the monocoque that it meets. The whole of that body is in final form without it before it even touches a human being. It's all robotic.
And computerised, in effect, ran by software.
Oh, yeah. So the point is it's all just-in-time ordering systems. The schedules work right through the same computer system, right down to at least Tier 1 and in some cases Tier 2. And on the 1st of September, all of the schedules got wiped.
Oh, so it was the data that was their production schedule, in effect? Or?
No, not just that. The production schedules got wiped. Now, what we don't know is whether that was part of the cyber attack or it was suddenly, hang on a minute, we can't build cars, so stop ordering stuff. But quite quickly... there was a thought that initially this was a short-term problem and it was going to get back on in a few days. So Tier 1s, that's the first tier suppliers to the tracker, wherever the car plants are, carried on manufacturing, but they weren't outputting anything. Now, once they realised that it wasn't a 1 or 2 day thing, they started laying people off, which is probably where your mate is.
Yes.
Not just on the track at Jaguar Land Rover, but also, the various tiers down the system. But of course, even when you lay off someone, you still have to pay them something, and you still have to pay for the finance of your machinery. You still have to pay for your rent, your rent, your lighting, your heating,
your rates,
and your admin team, and your accountant, and your lawyer. Dare I say?
Yeah.
So those costs are still there, and that went on for 5 weeks with nothing going on. Mm-hmm. Jaguar Land Rover now are just starting to get going again, but nothing. They're not at full chat yet.
Is that just because when you do completely shut down for a period, it just by its very nature takes you a while to ratchet back to full capacity?
Yeah. And there's another thing, that because it went through a month end, a hell of a lot of people, particularly at this time of year in the run-up to Christmas, there's a lot of, shall we say, alternative demand for seasonal work. And if people have got bills to pay, personal rent to pay and mortgages to pay, they will follow it. And there is an expectation in the supply chain that of the direct workers that they've laid off, there'll be a pretty chunky percentage don't even come back.
And Jaguar Land Rover is, as a company generally, it's business. It's been, up until this point, has it been doing, is it considered that it's doing well? I mean,
yeah, it posted record results in March this year.
And presumably one of our leading exporters too, right? I mean, the Americans love those cars, don't they? The Land Rovers. Do the Chinese as well? I'm sure they've got their own version, but
let's not talk about that.
Not that's for a different podcast. But,
different podcast.
But they're popular all the way around. I mean, the big Range Rover type cars are very popular, right?
There's a big proportion of JLR's output is export. And after, I think, the Premier League, JLR are our second biggest export. It's another podcast to talk about
the Premier League. Definitely.
They're the country's biggest export.
It must be one of the biggest taxpayers in terms of PAYE as well, I would think. But that is definitely for another podcast. But so it has been. I mean, it has been powering on through up until this point. Haven't they got some issues that it was felt that they hadn't really gripped the electric car revolution a little bit? Is that, or perhaps perhaps that was a few years ago and they'd responded to that.
There is discussion and debate over that, and I know that they are going into partnership with other organisations to manufacture electric cars elsewhere in the world. But that was nothing new. The I-Pace was manufactured by a partner in Austria. They're working hard on it, but they're a premium brand. So the point is they've reverted to what they were probably prior 2017, where they're stopping being a volume manufacturer but being a premium manufacturer. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they aren't key. And actually, the supply chain is vital. And the reason it's vital is for a lot more than just making Land Rovers. It's vital to, the industrial strategy has 8 key sectors.
Yeah.
I did an analysis a couple of weeks back, and I can point towards 5 of those key sectors being directly reliant upon the UK manufacturing supply chain, of which the largest single proportion as a driver has to be Jaguar Land Rover, because they're our biggest manufacturer. And the other 3, which includes professional services, by the way, are indirectly affected. So if that supply chain collapses, you can kiss goodbye to an industrial strategy. And more importantly, only a week ago, I was at a innovation conference where they had a lieutenant commander from the Royal Navy, who is one of 4 serving officers who are charged with spinning up an SME supply chain for the defence sector. So
it's strategically key as well.
Yep. And he was saying to a group of 400 people in Birmingham, you know what, I appreciate it's a bit hard at the moment if you're in the Jaguar Land Rover supply chain, but be assured that if you make bits for a car or you make bits for an aeroplane or similar, you can absolutely make bits for the supply chain. We're going to have more money from April. We need you. It's your patriotic duty to get involved.
What is this, bits for tanks and stuff?
Well, it's military hardware on that. I won't profess to be the expert.
That's precisely what it is.
But probably tanks and other things.
But okay, so
it's precision engineering.
No, and I get it, and I remember having sort of holiday jobs at different parts of the manufacturing supply chain myself. I mean, not that everyone who knows me knows that I'm like the least handy person in the world, but I had a stint at think it's now Gestamping can it, but it used to be called ThyssenKrupp, which made bits for cars. I don't know if they make bits for JLR, probably, I guess. Also, I mean, this is sort of going back. I even had a job at Lucas at one point. I think they're called Lucas Aerospace, but the bit that was to do with bits for cars as well. And, you know, I mentioned somebody I know earlier, you know, everyone knows somebody who either works for Jaguar Land Rover or works somewhere within their supply chain.
Yep.
So especially locally, especially in the areas where our offices are located, it has a big impact. In terms of that impact, they're starting to ratchet it up, but it sounds to me like the tier ones and the suppliers below that are struggling.
So I was fortunate or unfortunate enough to be asked to do a fair bit of media about a month ago.
Yeah.
And about a week ago, because I carried on talking to businesses, it wasn't getting any better. So I started to, you know, throw teddies in the corner and say, look, you think this has gone away just because...
They've restarted production, yeah.
Well, they've restarted production, and the government have guaranteed a loan of 1.5 billion to JLR.
Okay, these guys it's always the big boys who always get these loans, right? This is 2008 all again, no?
Yeah, but they guaranteed a loan.
Right.
And the reality is, I believe that loan through a consortia or a couple of high street banks was only executed last week. So they can only pay tier one, who can then pay tier two, who can pay tier three, tier four, tier five, for actually invoices that go back to July and August.
JLR stopped paying the invoices once their production line. They put them on stop or just...
No. The problem was they couldn't pay them because their systems, shut everything down to protect themselves. Because... obviously, once you've got a cyber attack, it's a virus, isn't it? So you shut everything down to isolate it.
And that included the payment system?
It included the payment systems. So that money only started to trickle down once they could actually get the finance systems or a parallel finance system up in place, and also they could get that money drawn down. So there's a hell of a lot of tier one suppliers, frontline suppliers, who are only now being paid for their old invoices. And at the same time, Jaguar Land Rover introduced a line of credit where if they're paying in advance of invoices on schedules. But that's fine for what's happening now. But we are in third week of October now. Most businesses who are tier two and below aren't really back up to the level of supply they were doing. So they've lost the, and I'm using the word advisedly, income. And if I use the word contribution to their overheads and their profits, so it's more than losing profits, they've lost contributions, a bigger number, for each week that they will not be running. So for a hell of a lot of businesses, and once you get down to tier two, you're not talking 100 million turnover businesses, you're talking 10 million, 5 million, 2 million turnover businesses, where the backup security for the company are the deeds of the owner's house. And those businesses have lost 2 months.
And some of that, even if they get, it's not coming back. I mean, you've lost. That's almost like time that you would have been producing because of how these systems work. So presumably, if they're losing input, right? I mean, that's just been wiped off, and they're not absent as somebody coming up with a time machine. They're not getting. We've discussed DeLoreans last time we were on, but they're not getting that back. So that's a proper.
Well, you know, it was that DeLorean story and the experience my father had that made me actually get involved. Because somebody said, "Why are you doing this? Why are you being?" I said, "There's family history here." And the point is, I know what it feels like, you know, and whereas at the time my father decided, you know what, I'm not going to actually double down and stick the deeds of my house on the nail. There's a hell of a lot of people having to make those same decisions now as to whether they're actually going to be able to carry on. And that's why I've asked, really, for small businesses, the government need to step in, because third tier down, take a tier 3 business, should they, morally, should they be penalised for something that's happened, at OEM level?
Well, there's a philosophical and of course political part of that, and actually we probably have moved to a situation that we saw originally in 2008 with the bank bailouts, but more recently with COVID, and then actually when with households when the gas bills shot up, where actually the government has been stepping in to assist these industries, these communities. So almost by extension, if the government isn't helping these businesses, I see that as a choice, right? That's a choice. If there isn't the equivalent of a C-bills or something, that's what we need, isn't it?
Well, it's worse than COVID for those that are affected, because during COVID there was lots of help.
Yeah.
In this case, there's none. And I've got, I've been in quite a few rows with government officials as to why I still believe there's none now. But the point is, everyone's not in it together this time. It's a limited market in the short term. But I come back to the strategic point. This is not just let's protect people's houses. There's a moral obligation there. But from the country's point of view, there's a strategic reason to make this a special case. Because if you believe the defence point, if you've got a defence prime, they're called primes in defence rather than original equipment manufacturers, OEMs. Okay. But if you've got a defence prime and they're sourcing into tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and the government as their policy have said, we are absolutely going to make sure that spent is spent in the UK SME sector. If that SME sector are not there or not ready to do it, then the alternative is they will end up using imported parts. Where's the logic in that? It doesn't fit within the government's industrial strategy. So there's a reason for them doing it.
Well, one thing that the government could do, and in my experience, it's sort of hit and miss, and it depends on which desk it lands in HMRC. Surely there should be some virtually automatic for all of this policy, giving time to pay arrangements on VAT and on corporation tax. Surely they can do that, right? Shouldn't that be done straight away?
Yes, they've done that.
They have.
However, you're the lawyer. I'm uncomfortable about that. And the other thing they're doing is they are pointing everyone towards the growth guarantee scheme. Now, that's actually the grandson of the small firm loan guarantee scheme and the son of C-bills.
Yes.
Okay? And it's a guarantee scheme. The difference is that the guarantee is provided to the lender, not the borrower.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the borrower pays a premium, which then effectively buys an insurance policy that enables that to be guaranteed to the lender. And most important...
You're paying for your own help here, it sounds like, a little bit.
Yes, and the guarantee will only ever be enforced in the event that all existing security has already been exhausted. So picture yourself, you've got, I don't know, £10 million engineering firm.
Well, your bank will have all assets debenture over you.
Yep. Yeah. And it will invariably be secured by a personal guarantee or backed by some form of personal guarantee.
Oh, so the government only kicks in even after somebody's house has been sold, right?
So actually you go cap in hand to the bank, okay, yeah, we can give you an extension under the growth guarantee scheme. That's what they want them to do and they're encouraging them to do. And quite rightly, the banks and financial institutions are really uncomfortable about that because, the banks have taken a right bashing over sort of various mis-selling scandals down the years, haven't they? Insurance policies and what have you. And I know from talking to a number of bank managers down the years and bank directors, they've never liked this kind of structure because it's sort of like distress lending. And yes, it's available. And if you've got visibility of the security of your business and how profitable your business is going to be in the future, you'd probably do it. But take the £10 million turnover business right here, right now. If, say, half their business is in JLR, when's that half business going to come back on stream? And at what cost? And moreover, if you're taking time to pay, that's now a preferred debt, isn't it?
They've changed that relatively recently.
Yep.
Preferred debt means that when a company goes insolvent, the creditors get paid in order. Still, the secured debts get paid first, the ones that have got the debentures and whatever.
With a fixed guarantee.
Yes, but then there's a...
But
then the government...
a floating guarantee, it's not the same. So the point is they're putting somebody towards a guarantee that will be the guarantee for the lender that's quite expensive money anyway, doesn't really secure the borrower, and time to pay. That's giving you cash flow, but if you're securing that cash flow, you as a director surely need to make sure and be very confident that your business is financially viable for the next 12 months. Otherwise, couldn't you become unlimitedly liable?
Oh, well, potentially, if you're guaranteeing it. Are the guarantees unlimited as well?
Well, it depends on what
the guarantee is, of course. Yeah.
Whatever the situation is, they'll say growth guarantee scheme that, can't be secured against somebody's house. But if somebody goes down for £250,000...
It doesn't matter if it's secured on the house or not. They're losing the house if they get bankrupt,
right? I was going
to
say, they've got that down the back of the sofa, obviously, haven't they? So it's sort of a circular argument, that one.
So, and just so I can understand this then, in simple terms, you think that the guarantee scheme, how they've enacted it, is flawed because?
It's flawed because it's more debt.
Yeah.
And it's under an existing scheme that, in a way, is fine so long as you've got clear visibility of profitability in the future. And as this things stand right here, right now, further down the tiers, because, by the way, I mentioned a few minutes ago, stock started piling up. Jaguar Land Rover get going again. The first thing they're going to do is use the component parts that Tier 1 have already got.
Yeah.
Most SMEs are saying, you know what, we're not going to get going again properly while New Year. And then you've got another quarter's rent to pay in the meantime.
Well, I think this is the point that you're alluding to, but go with me on this analogy. I think that regardless of the fact that once a boat has sprung a leak, it's taking on water, right? And even if you're plugging a certain point of it, once the hull has been pierced, you can't particularly unpierce it, right? There's a hole in there, right? And these businesses, because of what's happened, it doesn't matter how much more time they're given to pay or help with their cash flow, there is an element whereby they've sort of been fundamentally and arguably permanently, at least permanently in the medium term, if that's not a contradiction in terms, have been damaged.
Yeah, and the revenues that they would get for the sales they've lost won't be coming from about the end of this month. The lost.
Oh, it's just about to kick in some respects
because you don't get paid immediately.
No.
So the knock-on effect of that, what people have been struggling to stay alive doing, is because they haven't been getting the money for the work they did up till the end of August. The non-activity for August and September, they wouldn't be expecting that money to come in yet. But if they aren't doing time to pay and they're doing this without thinking forward properly, effectively, they may already have cut into bone.
And I think that you've said this to me in different contexts in the past, that cash flow is a lagging indicator, right? It's almost the work that you did. Your cash in the bank in November often can be work that was actually carried out in January in certain businesses. Maybe I'm just talking about the law here, but of course that has got an impact here insofar as actually the real cash flow pain is just being felt now. That's the point you're making, right?
Absolutely. And of course, the other bit that I've been saying from the outset, and I haven't got a potential solution here, by the way. I've been saying right from the outset that in any business, September and October are key months.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're not interrupted by a bank holiday. So actually, they should be good production months.
Yeah.
They're gone. So the real effect of that, you put that cash, you collect out that cash from good trading months, all being well, and you put that in the nut still, or a bit like a squirrel. That gets you through Christmas.
I was just about to say, and it's so funny that that's all businesses, including the one that I run, that September, October, maybe half of November too, in some respects, but are your real productive months. They are the key for your business. Certainly key for your business's cash flow, because a bit like Game of Thrones, winter is coming. Well, Christmas and January are coming, where you do have you're closed. You've got, for a lot of people, there's both personal tax, corporation VAT quarters and corporation tax quarters, and tax to be paid. Often for a lot of companies make two payrolls in perhaps not this year for some of these companies, but make for those who are still paid monthly. And I realise that manufacturers do a lot of weekly paid, but there's a big hit on cash that comes in December and Jan.
Absolutely, when you've got no income coming in, because that then and Jaguar Land Rover will close again for Christmas. They will. So the whole, you'll have 2 weeks of no activity again, and that will then come into January, February. So what I've been...
what are you lobbying for? Because I want to take this in two directions. One, what we would like the government to do. Yeah. But then secondly, and what you think practically some of these people in the supply chains can be doing too, that it's self-help. We won't be able to see this in the pod, but we just got interrupted by, I want to say that's Led Zeppelin.
It is Led Zeppelin.
So we're in Wolverhampton. This is where, what's his name? He's from Wolverhampton, isn't he? I know he's a big Wolves fan.
No.
Is he not?
Robert Plant is a big Wolves fan, but he actually lives in Kidderminster and was born in Carter's Green, West Bromwich.
So I think it would be remiss if
John Henry Bonham was born in Redditch.
Is John Henry Bonham
the drummer?
Is he alive?
No, he died in 1980.
And there was more than drummer and a Robert Plant.
Yeah,
Who's the other
two, Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones, are from the southeast.
And Jimmy Page is still alive, isn't he?
Yes, and so's John Paul Jones.
It would be remiss of me, given that we've discussed meatloaf and whatever on this past. So give me very quickly 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, reverse order, best 3 Led Zeppelin songs. I know you normally have Led Zeppelin, they're more of an album band. Okay,
absolutely.
Well, no, let's do that then. Give me in reverse order. And if you can name the year of release, that'll be even better for the watchers. You can guesstimate the year of release. But just give me them reverse order, 3, 2, 1.
Okay. The third one, it's a matter of choice, but my third would be Physical Graffiti. Mm-hmm. Double studio album, Rare Bird.
That's an early 70s one, isn't it?
That was 1970. People will correct me, but I think it's 74.
Okay.
You should have prepared me for this.
No, I don't. That makes it more fun. So what's it called again? What graffiti?
Physical graffiti.
Okay, yeah. That's 3.
2. The Brown Bomber.
Okay. Is that named after the West Bromwich Albion?
Well, it might have been because John Bonham was an Albion fan. God rest his soul. But the Brown Bomber was Led Zeppelin 2.
Led Zeppelin 2, what does that mean?
Led Zeppelin 2.
What's that second band? Did they?
No. The first 4 albums.
Right.
Well, the 4th album we'll come on to in a moment.
Okay.
But the first album was just called Led Zeppelin.
Right.
Then there was Led Zeppelin 2.
Right.
Then there was Led Zeppelin 3.
Right.
And then there was the 4th album, which was completely unnamed, but it had 4 runes on it, and it's generally known as Led Zeppelin 4.
And so with Brown Bomber, which is the second album, and that became
And
the
that's
nickname
a
for the
whole lot
second.
whole lot of love,
That's
which
the one
you've
I know.
just heard,
Yeah.
is on Led
Yeah.
Zeppelin 2.
So go on, give me. You've given this. You've spoiled the reveal here.
Yeah,
I think
is
number one is
the unnamed fourth album. Their magnum opus, in my opinion.
and it's just a sort of great album to sort of put on in the car or relaxing at home. Is it? You just sort of turn it up and
It's the right mixture of what they call light and shade, but of course it's got the inimitable Stairway to Heaven on it.
of course.
But it's also got a number of other fantastic tracks that people say, "Oh, I recognise that," like Rock and Roll and Black Dog. But there's a track called Four Sticks,
Right.
which John Bonham played with 4 drumsticks, and apparently that's the most sampled drum track, and it appears on all kinds of music, right up to R&B and rap music. They sample it even to this day.
I'll have to have a listen to it. I know, and of course, Stairway to Heaven is famously referenced in Wayne's World, where they're not allowed to play it when everyone goes and gets the guitar out. And
No, Stairway denied.
Yeah, Stairway denied, isn't it?
Although
Yeah.
to be fair, that was completely inaccurate, because if you want me to be really nerdy,
Go on.
they referred to a white Fender Stratocaster,
Right.
where Stairway to Heaven was played alternatively on a Fender Telecaster or a Gibson Les Paul, or live he played with a Gibson Twin Neck.
Fine. Yeah, that is too nerdy.
That's really nerdy.
Yeah, no, we'll move on. So you were just before we got interrupted, you were going to tell me
meanwhile,
what the government needs. Let's go.
Right.
First, what does the government need to do?
Okay, so I want to help out the smaller businesses, because the tier ones generally are global businesses.
Mm-hmm.
They've got corporate cash pools. It's not great. They've lost a lot of money, but they should, if they're well run, not go out of business. And those businesses will be helped first by the cash coming down and the advance cash coming down.
Mm-hmm.
They should be able to limit their exposure. Get down below that level, tier 2, tier 3. These are family-owned businesses or owner-managed businesses where, livelihoods are on the line. So what I said is, why wouldn't you seek to help out the businesses turning up to, say, 15 million? And why wouldn't you actually put some money with the, and don't ask me to pronounce them, but the CDFIs, effectively the lending co-ops.
Yeah.
So not the high street banks, the lending co-ops.
They're like credit unions for businesses, are they?
Well, yeah, like locally in Birmingham, there's Art and BCRS.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a Coventry one as well. And I've been talking to all of them, and they would administer a pot of money to come from central government on one side. And my idea would be to say, look, help those businesses out, and if you can prove you've lost sales as a result of JLR, so here's where we were in August, this is what didn't happen in September, then you can get a line of credit from them, which initially is a loan. And I've said, you know what, it should be interest-free.
Yeah.
And you know what, you shouldn't have to start repaying it till April, because by April, everything should be back running again. Coincidentally, and I suggested this long before, that's about the time the defence industry want to use them too. What's not to like? So these are relatively small sums of money, but might just be the lifeboat to the boat with a hole you've got. Because the other thing is all of these little businesses, just as an aside, they are all trading with one another. So if one tips over, then another one will, and another one will, and this has always happened.
Yeah, and they're my clients, right? I mean,
yeah. So I said to originally West Midlands Combined Authority, who think it's a good idea, by the way, why wouldn't you do this? Absolutely great, but we haven't got any money. How much do you think you need? And I said, look, even if you limited it to a maximum of 100 grand a company, that'd be a
could be game changers for some of those companies.
And I said, well, would you go about repaying it? I said, well, I actually think that, and it was an idea I had ages ago, that these businesses actually need to be encouraged to invest going forward. And if they can see that they can invest going forward, and my manufacturing surveys have indicated that people haven't been investing.
Buying the robots.
They haven't been investing in Industry 4. They haven't been investing maybe as much as they could or should do in training. And they've not been investing in net zero because, or decarbonisation, because they've been just surviving and they haven't been confident enough about the future. But if you could get to that point and you could say, right, you've had your £100,000. If you're still employing the same people, because that was the big problem with
CBILS.
Well, no, it wasn't so much CBILS. It was the furlough scheme that so many businesses just put people on furlough and then sacked them.
Yeah.
But they kept the furlough money, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah,
it was pointless.
Yeah.
But in this case, so you'd say you got, 30 employees at August. You've still got same 30 employees in April. And you're going to spend, let's say, £100,000 on new kit. Then why wouldn't the government knock 25,000 off the amount that they've borrowed, and then they're only repaying on 75?
Yeah.
So like a 25. And I called it, I love new names, don't I?
Yes.
I call this grantify it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you reserve the right to grantify the loan if they've hit the marks.
Yeah, and you're grantifying it for good behaviour. If they've made half the people, it's still a debt. But, it's a completely unsecured debt. So it's not sitting behind anything else or what have you. It is just an investment in those smallest companies. And actually, if you limited it to those companies, those tier 2s and tier 3s, and you limited it and you capped the level of support, you actually wouldn't need a lot of money. And so I sort of said, well, I'm just picking a figure out the sky. I said, but you could probably help a couple of them, the average, not all of them would need that. But by the way, that also applies to the guy who's the local sausage sandwich supplier.
Well, I did. Do you know what this made me think of? I did study A-level economics, and it's the multiplier effect, I think it's called, isn't it?
Yeah, but it would also, because the onus would then be on the business to approach the CDFIs to say, I've been affected. And it might be the local chip shop, but there's still a family business being affected, So everyone won't have 100,000. So at the kind of level I'm looking at, 20 million would be...
Almost cover it, right?
Yeah, would be it'd help a lot of businesses out. And 20 million in the auspices of central government.
It's nothing, right?
Rachel Reeves has got that down the back of the Chesterfield in number 11. She just needs to put her hand down there.
Where are we? So it sounds like the combined authority. This is led by the mayor of the West Midlands.
The combined authority support me, but they've said they haven't got that kind of money.
They haven't got it themselves, but are they pressing the government for it? Do we know?
They are supportive.
Is it moving forward? Are we going to have to? I mean, there might be only so much you can say, but are you hopeful that this could go through?
Well, where are we now? It's the 22nd of October. I hatched this in the second week of September, when it took me 2 weeks to realise, hang on a minute, this is not just nothing.
There's going to be a long tail on this.
This is a long tail.
Yeah.
And I know I noticed. And immediately I swung into action. I spoke to a couple of people at CDFIs. So a month in, we've gone nowhere. And do you know what's really worrying? And only this week, I think, the media has woke up to it. The 1.5 billion loan loan guarantee was announced on the eve of the Labour Party conference. Go figure. And I was asked to comment on that quite a bit in the next few days. interestingly enough, the first one was on
Well, we see this is
Saturday night.
a good news story, right? Pump the tyres ahead of the conference, right?
And I said at that point in time, I'm not sure. I said, I think Jaguar Land Rover shouldn't be administering this themselves. It's, they've got enough on their plate solving their problems. And I don't think it will be quick enough, deep enough or wide enough to help all of the businesses that were affected.
Especially into tier 3 and 4.
And that has not changed at all. Now, even with that money coming on stream now, and it's taken a month to come on stream, well, not 3 weeks to come on stream, but it's still not enough to help out those small businesses that, quite frankly, if you thought about, if in your business somebody said to you, you're going to have your contribution wiped out for 2 months. I mean, unless you are a big international business, you can't ride that punch. You can't. As well as, oh, by the way, you are only getting paid for the work you did sort of 6 weeks ago or 8 weeks ago, slowly on the drip, and you've had to wait. You've been sort of like robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Is there anything that anyone watching this can do to support this? I mean, I guess email your local MP.
Yep.
That's something that's the thing that people should do, and including the businesses. But anybody watching this who could say, look, there is a proposal to support the tier 3 and tier 4 suppliers. Please, can you get behind that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a conversation with an MP tomorrow. I've been talking to a number of MPs of all political persuasions. There are people who are talking to various ministers. It'd be really nice to talk to the newly appointed Secretary of State. But of course, the other thing, in defence kind of to the government, Peter Kyle, the new business secretary, had only been in post a matter of days when this all kicked off, because of the reshuffle that was triggered by the Angela Rayner thing.
A subject on a previous podcast, if you look in the feed.
So he's new in post. He's not traditionally business orientated. He worked in the third sector for a long time before he went into professional politics. So he's, I'm sure, been getting up to speed. But yeah, the community, all of us would be well served by anyone watching or listening to this to contact their MPs to say the SME supply chain needs more help.
No. Well,
and it doesn't need to cost a fortune. That's the point.
No. A relatively modest sums could have a massive impact here. Yeah. No, I think that's helpful. And listen, I think if everyone can sort of get behind what Jonathan's saying here, and contact the MPs and your local MP and ask him to support this, or him or her to support the SME businesses impacted by the JLR, then that would be good.
So what can businesses do?
Yeah, that was my next question. So I mean, the government, up to a point, SME businesses are hopefully will get some more support, but what's the self-help remedy here?
Right. So there's a number of things that are protection for the ownership of the business and also for the future of the business themselves. Mm-hmm. Number one is assuming that, let's go on the assumption that there's a future for your business. And the first thing you need to do, and we'll come on to that in a moment, is there a future for your business? But if you are over-reliant on a single customer, doesn't matter whether it's JLR or anyone, don't. It's very, very difficult if you're already in that position. And if, somebody rings you up and they're sort of like a tier 1 and suddenly it's 80% of your business, what are you going to say? No. Yeah. The answer is you say, well, okay, if that's going to be 80% of our business, we need to make it 50% of our business by growing our business into other sectors. That's a long-term solution. It doesn't help you out in the short term. Absolutely talk to your customer, particularly if they're a tier 1, they're being pressured to help people out. But the most important thing is to model your cash flow before you take out more debt. Model your cash flow of how it's likely to be, I would say, in the next weeks or months.
Especially identify the key pinch points.
Identify the key pinch points, and actually identify that you, as a director, can trade and be solvent.
Well, I mean, I think that.
And that will make it easier, by the way. If you do need to go cap in hand to the bank for a pinch point, you've got the numbers.
They're going to want that
anyway.
information, and I think that, of course, I mean, it was something that we touched upon on our podcast with Laura Pickering from More Insolvency, which is also on this feed, about that most. All companies are limited entities, and most businesses, certainly most of the businesses we're talking about here, will be limited companies. And for the most part, you as a director, save in relation to any personal guarantees that you've got the protection of limited liability status. And that means that if the company, unfortunately, does go into liquidation or administration, you've got no personal liability. However, as with anything in life, and certainly anything in law, there are exceptions to that. And one of those exceptions is if you trade a business whilst it is insolvent, and in certain circumstances, if you've made the position of your customers of your suppliers worse by almost like King Canute standing there commanding, just going on regardless and commanding the waves back on the beach, if you just plough on, you can, in certain circumstances, expose yourself to personal liability.
So spin back to the time to pay idea. You are taking more money off a preferred creditor. If you haven't got the evidence there that proves actually that by taking that money, I'm going to be able to pay my unsecured creditors going forward. If you're just digging a bigger hole because you haven't done the numbers, then actually I think that probably could be an argument that an unsecured creditor has got less chance of being paid out.
You're making their position worse. But then what that does, and again, I know that sometimes we can be a bit like a broken record on this podcast. Getting professional advice is so key. Speaking to your accountant, the accountant will want the data, will want that cash flow projections, can help you typically to put that together if it falls slightly out of your skill set. They can help you identify where those pinch points are. Maybe in certain circumstances say, look, I think we need to go and speak to an insolvency practitioner in certain circumstances.
And do you know what? Just talking to an insolvency practitioner does not mean you're going bust.
No.
And actually, if you've got a good accountant, he will be able to refer you to an insolvency practitioner who will give you an hour's free advice. And if you document that,
you're getting ahead of this. Some of this, Jonathan, this is to make me sound clever. So you're going to make the point that I was going to make, but I'll let you continue.
Yeah, but if you document that, it's going to help.
It is going to help. It's a defence. If when you are struggling and the company eventually does enter an insolvency practitioner process, the fact that you can demonstrate you went and got professional advice from your accountant, perhaps you went and got professional advice from an insolvency practitioner, most of whom are focused on recovery rather than selling products. Most of them are, and to the extent they say, look, we can see why you would want to continue to do this for a certain period of time, that in and of itself is a defence if in due course you are pursued by that by the liquidator to repay monies or whatever else. And also it is also a defence to any of the sort of if director's disqualification points if insolvency practitioner thinks that it's been misconduct. Getting that advice is what you should do. I think we've said on this podcast before a lot of the time, and maybe again not to try and be sexist or whatever, but we've got sort of middle-aged men of a certain generation, and probably put ourselves both in that, right? And they don't like, sometimes they see discussing problems as a sign of weakness, and sort of bottle all of that up. And particularly people who are, running businesses, I just think that going in and properly taking that advice, just discussing it with somebody who you trust, I think that can just be a massive relief and a benefit to your mental health, just as much as if in a different circumstances you're going to see a psychologist or a counsellor, right? They are the counsellor to your business, and I think that we would really encourage people to go and get that advice.
Oh, for sure. And so by all means, talk to your bank manager, see what's available. By all means, talk, because they will know. The challenge is, of course, a lot of these businesses haven't got a bank manager anymore. But that's
you will be able to speak to. It won't be a bank manager, but there will be somebody within the bank, and they will. If there will be a certain pressure that is on the bank if you've got to help you out. Not to press buttons too quickly, give you more time to pay everything else.
But utilise time to pay. But before you do that, get somebody to crunch the numbers, so that you can actually say, because they're going to want that anyway. And actually, by the very act of doing that, that will help you to get the best advice. The other thing, which is sort of another thing to keep an eye on, is your credit rating. It is manipulable in certain circumstances. I know that the likes of Experian and what have you are watching this carefully. Some businesses will have already had their credit rating damaged purely because they're in the JLR supply chain. And actually, you can see that that's a bit of a squeeze. That you actually now need to start producing some product for your customer because they now have got a schedule from Jaguar Land Rover, say. So you go to your supplier and you suddenly find out you're on stop for your steel because, as an example, because your credit rating's been halved and you didn't know. See, there's ways and means of actually checking out your own credit rating. If you're going to deal with a customer.
Well, the steel mills will often be outside the UK, right? So so they're going to want to check your credit. Is that right?
Well, no,
they're mainly UK.
The steel mills are out the UK, but the stock most people buy off UK stockholders,
right?
And they will be invariably receivables financing. So, they will be absolutely
credit rating
sort of like 3-line whip.
Yeah.
So just, manage that as best you can, and sort of take steps or take advice as to how you might improve that credit rating, ready for when things start to tick along, because that could be another pressure on your cash flow.
And then finally, probably everything that is within your control around maintaining your own cash flow. That might make some of your suppliers that wait a little bit longer, and if you speak to them, I'm sure some of those organisations will understand, and like we would say to all of our clients, and like we say to ourselves sometimes, getting your invoices, which are aged, putting some pressure on your own customers to get them paid.
Yeah. Most people in those tiers won't just be in that supply chain.
No.
Actually making sure that you're collecting out the 40% of your business that isn't in JLR as quickly as possible is bound to help. But it is all about actually knowing more than ever in times of difficult, don't bury your head in the sand. Know where the numbers are. As an accountant, I'm bound to say that, but actually know where the levers are that you need to pull.
And also, I think, and we'll put the link to the previous podcast we've done here, which ironically was largely based on your father's own experience with his manufacturing business, not located very far from where we're filming this. On that podcast, we have a good long discussion about practicing thrival, which is something that Crow and yourself
another one of my words
works. But I think I know that's something that I personally have focused on in difficult difficult economic times, focusing on what you do well and doubling down on what you do well. And here that might be focusing down on things that are going to produce you cash. But
everything will provide opportunity. If God gives you lemons, make lemonade.
No, I think on that note, we can end the podcast. Thank you, Jonathan, for coming on.
Thank you for asking me.